The following is an example of feathered or curl mahogany, as it's sometimes referred to, and the background for this panel is of a burnt sienna, a reddish tone, and what I'm doing here is I'm rubbing in a sandy or a reddish tone background, and the centre I'm rubbing in a dark centre, and the purpose of this is to make the base for the feather itself. So, and I've taken a Badger softener there, so I'm softening it. The medium I'm using for this panel is watercolour, and I'm softening it to control it or reduce the amount of running or flowing of the colour, which can happen very easily with watercolour. So we'll be blending the two together, a wet background which shows all the streaks and the central dark shape. It can be seen that the central dark shape goes off on a bend, which I prefer to incorporate as opposed to doing it straight up, which for me, if it's done straight up the middle, it tends to resemble somewhat like a Christmas tree, which looks rather unnatural. So I tend to put a bend in my work. I'm doing this continuous softening which looks, it can be rather monotonous to look at, but necessary to control the colour from running or merging together, you could say. The next stage now, I'm taking a 3 or 3.5 inch hog hair mottler, and I'm starting to cut out the feather. This colour is generally referred to as Cuban red, curl mahogany or feathered mahogany. I prefer to cut out the right hand side first, and once I've got that in, I then change over as it will be shown in a moment. I'm just pulling back on the right to put that bend in the shape, to avoid, as I said a moment back, to avoid the Christmas tree effect, which is one straight up the middle. I'm softening it on the left hand side now in the hope that I can prevent the colour from merging together. Also important is to wash or to clean the mottler out before you start to cut out the left hand side, which I'm about to do now. Really speaking, the effect we're looking for is a sort of an elliptical shape, like an ascending jet of water, and it forms an ellipse at the top. Wider at the base and narrow towards the top is a preferred arrangement. On inspection of some real authentic mahogany, you can see a very wide base, but sometimes quite a narrow one. But it looks, I think for me, it looks better if the base is wider than the top. Now I'm softening it all off now, the work, and gently softening the middle, the dark centre, in the hope of I can control the colour from flowing together or merging, as we would say. what I'm doing now is imparting or putting in some lights, or if you will, streaks, to create contrast in the work so it doesn't look all the same, a monotone effect. And the idea is, by inspection of a piece of real mahogany, you'll see that these lights vary from side to side. They don't go equidistant on each side. The lights create, I think, contrast, a visual contrast in your work. It's about knowing where, having a right feel to where to position or put these lights in. From time to time I'll just kneel back there and just moisten a mottler. Or, as it can be seen, a darker streak, I put a touch of darker colour on maybe the one corner of the mottler to impart a darker streak. It's all about getting contrast, variety in your work without overdoing it. I don't always use a mottler, or in addition to the mottler, if you will. I just use a worn paintbrush, a clean one of course, and just control it with bending it, opening the bristles out and putting the streaks in where I consider necessary. Probably with a bit of darker colour, or sometimes just white clean and put more lights in, as I've done there. The colour was slightly running there, so what I've done, I've gone over with a mottler to hopefully remove it and to control it. Now we soften the centre. Generally it should be upwards and outwards at a slight angle, just off the horizontal when you're softening the work upwards. I'm just softening all over to control the colour. It's a very light softening action, not too heavy, or else you'll distort your pattern. Or you lose the shape will lose, the design will lose its identity, if you will. just softening very gently up the centre. I am now taking a small sign writing brush to put what is called the lights down the centre of the heart or of the feather, and it's important to try and create a merging effect, not stiff or rigid marks. Try and follow the flow of the grain to enable to get a more natural appearance. I've gone over it, I'm just going over it again now. I've just wiped the brush clean and just strengthening the lights to expose the base colour. The work is almost complete, so I'm taking a sponge to wipe off the surrounding colour. Just a bit of softening there, it's slightly running. I take a sponge to wipe off the colour, as I just said, on the top and down the sides, cutting the sponge in to the panel so as to leave the work nice and clean. This, incidentally, would be the first stage of the graining process. Overgraining would follow, but that can be shown subsequently on a course. The overgraining would comprise of what we call flecking and mottling, which again is seen in an authentic, a real piece of mahogany that will be visible, but I haven't put those in on this stage, this being the first stage only. And at this point we could say that the work is almost completed and ready for the next stage, which would be the overgraining.